Hello and welcome to Drive-In Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan.
I'm Ryan.
And this is the podcast where we talk about 2 movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. And today we're talking about The Born Losers from 1967, directed by T.C. Frank, which is actually just a pseudonym for Tom Laughlin, who directed this. Yeah, this is the first Billy Jack movie. So you would think Billy Jack would be the first Billy Jack movie, but no, the Born Losers is the original. What's your experience with Billy Jack in general?
Well, this was not my first Billy Jack movie. My stepdad really enjoyed Billy Jack, and so I watched the Billy Jack, and it was okay. It's a little kind of slow type of movie, and it's a little cheesy, but it's kind of like the one man vigilante type of thing. So, but and then I watched this one, and it's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I feel kind of similar to Billy Jack on this one. Yeah, I had also seen Billy Jack before. Actually, this is a recommendation episode from my dad who showed me this movie. Well, he recommended this movie, and he showed me Billy Jack back in the day because it's something he watched as a kid. And actually, I got a nice little interview talking with him about why he recommended The Born Losers. Well, Dad, I guess we'll hop right into it. So today's episode is one you recommended. It's The Born Losers, which is the first Billy Jack movie, and I just want to ask why The Born Losers?
Because number one, I love the title because I myself am a born loser.
Me too.
That's what drew me to the movie. No, well, I had seen Billy Jack first. I think me and you had this conversation before.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd seen Billy Jack first. I was introduced to that by my father. He had seen Billy Jack when he was younger, in the 70s, and loved it, but there was actually a movie with Billy Jack in it like 4 or 5 years before had the actual Billy Jack. And so I forget how we got it. I don't know if we rented it. I believe we rented The Born Losers at the PX at the Post Exchange because I was a military brat. And I think we rented it and we actually recorded it because, back in the day, you'd hook 2 VCRs together and record movies.
Mm-hmm. So
we recorded The Born Losers, and so I guess that's how I was first introduced to it because of Billy Jack.
That's really awesome. So, Grandpa was he a huge fan of the Billy Jack movies? Because I was gonna say both. I think the first 2 Billy Jack movies came out before you were even born. And I was kind of wondering if it was still like culturally important when you were growing up, or if it was just Grandpa that really brought you into liking those movies.
No, it was, I don't know about culturally important because, as a teenager, or a young teenager, most of my friends had no clue who Billy Jack was.
Yeah.
So they had never really seen it or heard of it. So as far as culturally relevant, I'm sure that it is because of the undertones of the movies with them being, part Native American and the prejudice against Native Americans in certain towns, things of that nature. I'm sure it was relevant, but as far as my friends and stuff like that, they had no clue who Billy Jack was. But I was introduced by Grandpa, your grandpa, my father, because he just liked the movies. If you know your grandfather, he doesn't love anything as far as movies are concerned, but he really liked them. I think he liked the macho-ness of Billy Jack. And the one scene in Billy Jack where he says, "I'm going to take this right foot and I'm going to walk you from the left side of your face, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it." I think that's that iconic scene just resonates with somebody like your grandfather. He exudes that military macho-ness, and I think that your grandfather was able to connect with that. So that's probably why he enjoyed it so much. And because, Billy Jack was a Vietnam veteran.
Yeah, no, and he's a Green Beret, and I know Grandpa has a thing for Green Berets. He really loves them. Recently, he showed me a vinyl record that he owns that has a song about Green Berets. I guess that was a whole craze there for a little bit. And what's interesting about the first Billy Jack, the one we're talking about today, The Born Losers, is it's a mix of a bunch of different genres. It's very different to Billy Jack. It's a motorcycle gang movie mixed with like a Green Beret revenge movie. It's got a lot going on. I think that's what I found most interesting about it, was how different it was compared to the other movie. I haven't seen all of the Billy Jack movies, but it definitely seems like something that he wanted to get made so he could get Billy Jack more movies.
I don't know if I, excuse me, 100% agree. I almost think that whenever I watched Billy Jack, because of not Billy Jack, but The Born Losers, because of the tone of it, and it's so different than Billy Jack,
mm-hmm.
I wonder if that he had planned on just making The Born Losers, and then, over the next couple of years, the Billy Jack character became synonymous in pop culture, so then he was able to make Billy Jack. I don't know, because of the tone of the first Billy Jack, and like you said, it's so many different genres together, it's so different than Billy Jack. I think that he made that movie, this is my personal opinion, I think he made that movie not really in mind of doing more, but because it did well, he was able to do another one with Billy Jack. And I honestly think that Billy Jack was probably more along the lines of what he was looking to do. Does that make sense?
No, that makes complete sense.
That's his baby. Yeah, I think that's like his baby, because you'll notice that the movie lightens up a bit, gets a whole lot more about the Native American culture, which that he was always an activist for. And in the next two Billy Jack movies, that's what it's. That's the main theme, is he's going to Washington to fight for Native Americans. And then I think he gets elected to Congress to fight for Native Americans. So I think that those three movies were the ones that he was looking to make. The Born Losers originally was made to stand alone. But again, there's no history or stories anywhere about that. So I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know, and unfortunately, the actor Tom Laughlin, he died in 2013. So it's hard to ask these questions, of course, but yeah, but he's definitely left a legacy. I think in Born Losers, I really liked him in it. He just has like an attitude, a mood, just like what Grandpa was talking about. He's just that macho leading man that's just really great to watch. I just like thinking about me growing up. You've talked a lot about Billy Jack growing up. I've known about these movies for a long time. You even showed me the first movie when I was younger. And what about Billy Jack has made it such an important movie for you in your life?
I guess the character of Billy Jack was one of my first introductions to kind of a disgruntled, war veteran that was a Green Beret, but yet he comes back. He's part Native American, and he sees how just to get into racism, because, and I know that's odd because you always hear about blacks and whites.
Yeah.
But I grew up in the military. And so, I grew up around every type of race that you could possibly think of, whether it's Asian or Black Americans or any number of different races. So I wasn't really used to seeing a certain race be picked on or be degraded in the way that the Native Americans were. So when I first saw Billy Jack, I think that was my first introduction into that, and to see Billy Jack, he was a mixed race. He's an ex-war veteran, but yet he decides that he is going to not allow the townspeople to degrade the Native Americans the way that they did, and he stood up for him. And I think for me, I just respected that. I respected the fact that took a stand for his people. And so I think for me, I just had a lot of respect for the character. Plus, he just kicked some butt. And you've got this Billy Jack taking up for the Native Americans and willing to take on, the whole town to get them, to protect them. I don't know. I think I just had a lot of respect for him. And I think that, that I grew up respecting those type of characters that was willing to take a stand for what was right.
Right there encapsulates why it might not be the most popular character in movie like history, but he definitely has a strong cult following,
Yeah.
and I think that's the reason right there.
And then when you get into Born Losers, like you said, it's about a motorcycle game. But what's he trying? Whenever he ends up running with them, what's he doing? He's actually trying to help a young girl that's getting caught up in the mess of this biker gang. So he's still that character that he's brooding and he's macho, but at the same time, he has a heart for people.
Yeah. I mean, it's still there. The core is definitely still there. But yeah, I guess before I let you go, do you have any comments that you have to say? Anything you want to say about Born Losers? Any last things?
Well, like you said, you always use the term fun fact, right? So I have a little fun fact about the Born Losers. It is the first movie where I saw two men kiss ever.
Yeah, I'm glad that you remembered that kiss because do you remember how it's not only one of the filthiest gay kisses I've ever seen in a movie, it's maybe one of the filthiest kisses I've ever seen in a movie.
Exactly. I mean, it's like lay one on me and the tongue's coming out and spit's flying. I think what they were trying to show is that they were into anything. So what do you call that? Bisexual, pansexual, whatever. And that was my first time being introduced to that type of a debauchery.
Yeah, exactly. That's the right word for it, is debauchery. And supposedly reading into it, that was one of the first gay kisses shown in a movie that was that graphic. Because, for 1967, just any type of gay activity in a movie was a red flag.
The reason that stuck with me so much is because I had a friend from church and he spent the night one night and we both watched it together, and when that scene came on, he just started busting out laughing.
Really?
He was he just did not know what to think, and so I was laughing, and that actually became an inside joke between me and him for a long time.
What, the gay kiss?
And we never, it was we'd be out or something, he'd just be like, lay one on me. And of course I wouldn't do that, but we would just start laughing, and just be like a little inside thing.
That's funny. Well, there you go. Yeah. See? Watching Born Losers with your church friends.
Yes. So that tells you something about my church life. But no, the Born Losers, it's, like you said, it's independent. I remember, it's been a while, but I remember just really enjoying it because I'd seen Billy Jack, and it was so different, but yet he still kicked a whole lot of ass.
Yeah.
And excuse my French. I know I'm a pastor, and I know that Ryan may not like me saying ass as a pastor, but I did. I just did it. Tell him I still think he's a pimp.
Okay, I will. I'll make sure. I'll send him the audio over of you calling him a pimp. But no, thanks for your time, Dad. I know you're busy today, but
I hope it was okay. I'm on my way to Virginia.
I know, but thank you. It was great. I love hearing all this, and yeah, we'll hop right back into the episode.
All right, Mr. Combs, I do appreciate it.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for that interview. No, I mean, I'm really happy to hear about that.
What a pimp.
Yeah, I'm glad that he can bestow his pimpness on everybody. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. But no, what I like to hear is, for the longest time, I thought this was a movie my dad had watched, but it was nice to hear that my grandpa was the one who kind of passed down this movie to my dad, and then it got passed down to me. So it was just kind of like a generational thing. I think that's nice.
Did your grandpa ever speak about this movie?
He's talked a little bit about it, not as much as my dad has talked about it, but he's talked about elements in this. My grandpa has he really loves Green Beret stuff because that was a thing back in the day, like Green Beret music, movies about Green Beret, like because my grandpa was in the military.
Did he watch the movie Green Berets directed by John Wayne?
I'm sure. John Wayne directed that?
Yeah, he did. That's like his only movie he directed.
Wow, that's wild.
Well, because it was all during like the Vietnam stuff, and he was just like, all those like hippie losers. Let me show how you make a real war movie.
Yeah, that sounds like him. I forget. I was reading about him recently where he called a movie un-American. Oh, High Noon.
High Noon.
Yeah, he was like, this is an un-American movie, which is a great film. If you haven't seen High Noon and you like westerns, it's such a good movie.
Well, John Wayne has some really questionable opinions about a lot of things, but
Yes,
we're not
he
going to
does.
get into that.
No,
So-
John Wayne has nothing to do with the Born Losers. So yeah, the Born Losers is kind of like a concept from Tom Laughlin. Tom Laughlin is a very interesting guy. I don't know he's very political, and he really cares about Native Americans and the way they've been treated by white people. And he had been making the concept of Billy Jack, somebody who fights for Native Americans, so is Billy Jack half Native American or full Native American?
I thought Billy Jack was supposed to be full, but
He's
I mean
full?
the way your dad described it, so when I see Billy Jack, my first instinct is not, oh, hey, look at that Native American guy, but
No.
but everybody in this movie is like, hey, what are you doing here, man? And they use a lot of, they call him like Injun and stuff like that, and use a lot of slurs against him, and I'm like, if I saw that guy walking on the street, that wouldn't be my first thought of like what his ethnicity is.
No,
Looks very white.
Tom Laughlin looks like a white man, and he is a white man. So, which I find very funny that he's playing a Native American. But I think it was 1967, and he had full good intentions behind it. But
It's not like incredibly offensive. Like, he looks like a regular dude, and they don't. It's not like they put brown makeup on him or red face or whatever, and be like, and have him speak like a Native American you'd see like in a Western or whatever. So
no. Yeah, he's kind of like a citizen, right? He's just like a dude.
he's just living his life, doing his own thing in this movie.
Yeah, because like at the very beginning of the movie, we get to see the villains of this movie because it's a motorcycle gang movie. Just this really like evil motorcycle gang beating up a dude in the middle of the street and nobody doing anything to help this guy.
Well, it's funny. So like in that scene, the guy that was like a motorist, I guess, like accidentally bumped into one of the bikes.
Mm-hmm.
And at first the biker gang's just like, all right, whatever, no harm done. And then the motorist is the one that antagonizes them. And so it's like, and basically tells them, like, hey, what are you guys? Like a bunch of, I forget what he says, but he basically antagonizes them. And then they just beat the crap out of this guy, like you said. And this poor guy, he's like a bloody mess. And he's just like throwing himself on like people's car windows, being like, oh, please, God, help me. And they're just like, go away.
Yeah, like a wife is like, hey, don't do anything. Just sit in the car. We're going to relax a little. In this dead stop traffic, it wasn't moving. It wasn't like traffic was blocked or anything. This guy gets beat up for like 5 minutes. Yeah.
And he crashes into a diner too, and he's like, call the police. And he's like, look, man, I don't want any trouble. And he's like, call the police, please.
And after all this, of course, Billy Jack, the people's savior, shoots one of the motorcycle gang. And it's kind of, this is where the whole, well, not the whole thing of the movie, but where Billy Jack's storyline kind of goes is that, he gets in more trouble than the motorcycle gang does for just shooting somebody.
Which is really weird. I mean, this whole town, it's like, we don't need you vigilantes around here. And even though there's this biker gang that's terrorizing this town and assaulting a bunch of women and men in the town. So
Yeah. I guess I just don't understand like because I get it a little later why they're like not wanting to go ahead and bring these people to court, but like they're just beating people up. Like I feel like you could at least get them in a little bit of trouble. Um, Especially with like, so Billy Jack, like this is the scene where I realized like, oh, they're really playing on Billy Jack being like Native American, and I couldn't tell because they block off his car. They even have a sign that they made. It looks like professional, and it says, no Indians allowed. And they pop his tires and everything, and it's the wildest scene.
Yeah, and Billy Jack just kind of like, at that point, he not gives up, but he's just like, all right, just do whatever you want. Like, I don't, like, obviously I'm going to get more in trouble than you guys. So he doesn't do anything for the rest of the movie, like, until much later. And then he starts finally like, oh, I got to do something.
Well, this is actually what I found weird about this movie. He disappears for a long time. He's like hardly in the movie until like towards the end of it. I feel like there's a good like 30, 40 minutes.
The first half of the movie, he has that one scene at the beginning. Mm-hmm. He pops up for like a little bit, but then it's mainly just like the biker gang and then this poor girl getting assaulted, and then the biker gang like going to like these other women that they already assaulted and going back and doing it again to make sure they don't testify in court.
Yeah, it's quite a movie because it's trying to play on the fear because they assault and they molest these women, and the whole plot device of the movie is them trying to protect themselves from not going to court. And Billy Jack really doesn't have anything to do with this until he kind of stumbles into the situation.
Yeah, but leading up to that, I mean, I hate that we've seen so many rape scenes in these movies that we've covered. It's just it's almost alarming how casual it is like back then.
I mean, there was a whole genre. Rape revenge was like a whole genre, which is insane, right? Like it's such a common thing.
And this movie is no exception. I mean, because the scene where they had the girl in the clubhouse and they keep threatening that it's going to happen, and then there's these other girls that have already been molested, and they're just like screaming in horror, like wanting to get out, and they're just like bounding them up and throwing them back into the bedrooms, and it's just like, ugh, like it's so hard to watch.
It is, and there's some really awful lines too. Like the main girl, this line is, I've been thinking about it. Well, if you're gonna get raped, you might as well get ready for it. It's like, oh, I might as well do it right, because she wants to take LSD for it. And it's like, oh, my God.
Right. Well, I mean, like, and that when she says that, she doesn't actually mean it, because she's trying to get out of the situation.
Yeah, she's trying to escape, but still, like, the first time I heard it, I was like, oh, that's so gross. And I mean, that's kind of like the deal. She, like, shows up with, like, a bikini and, like, everything, and the motorcycle gang starts chasing after her, and it's like a whole high-speed pursuit. I guess the scene where the motorcyclist crashes into the waters from another movie. They cut that in.
And they're just like, oh, well, we got this scene. Let's just use that.
Yeah, exactly. Because this movie was supposed to be like really cheap to make.
Well, there was like a couple of other like stock footage type moments, which I thought was a little weird. Like at the beginning of this movie is a fox being eaten by a bird.
Yeah, and it's like really gross too.
Yeah, it's like it's dead and covered with maggots, and like this bird is just like chomping away, ripping off like pieces of fox flesh.
Yeah.
And then not even like 30 minutes later, there's just like they go to the beach and there's just a dead seal on the beach.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to say this is Tom Laughlin's first time making a movie, and it feels very much like an amateur made it in a way. Like there's a lot of scenes that are out of focus. I don't know if you noticed this. Like the whole airport scene is completely like out of focus. And I will say it actually kind of looked nice because it looked different. But it definitely felt like somebody who had never made a movie before.
Yeah, it definitely felt a little amateurish, but it wasn't like anything too distracting, I would say, either. Yeah. I mean, I think he did a decent job for a first movie.
Yeah. And honestly, I think this movie is fine. I actually thought it was interesting enough. It wasn't great. My biggest issue with it is I think the pacing is really rough. Like it's an hour 40 minutes, and to me it felt like 3 hours. It felt like it was a long movie.
It did. So I mean, there's a long portions of the movie where they're just kind of like a lot of talking, and then like Billy Jack and then this girl who was assaulted, they're having their own little romance type of thing. And I'm like, but yeah, they're having their own little romance. And I think honestly, I think it's a little inappropriate for this movie, but
it's a little gross. Somebody who just got assaulted is being romantic towards Billy.
Right, because they even have a sex scene later in the movie, and it's just like I get it, whatever. I mean, they have to throw that in, I suppose. But you learn though that the writer of this movie was actually the female lead of this movie.
I did not know that. That's actually really cool.
So Elizabeth James, she was the female lead that in this movie, and she actually wrote the entire screenplay too.
Oh, cool! That's awesome. No, all right, that makes a little more sense because I saw that Elizabeth James there has like hardly been in anything else. Like this is like her one like pretty much starring role. She's like in a few other things in bit parts, and I guess it would make sense that she wrote this. She was able to star.
She was making her own opportunity.
And that's good for her.
But it is pretty cool though that you can have something like that you can kind of make your own role.
Yeah. So there's one scene that I absolutely love in this movie, and it has nothing to do with the rest of the plot. And that's when they go to have lunch, and they sit down with an astrologer, and the guy's like asking for their birthday, wanting their birth sign, telling them that they're incompatible. And
what was that about?
I don't know. It had nothing to do with the rest of the movie. I thought it was kind of funny because that felt like a scene Tarantino would rip off. That's because like he has a lot of pointless scenes, and I'm sure he loves this movie. It seems right up his alley. I don't know. It was so weird.
Well, that's when I say like there's like definitely some scenes that could be trimmed. Like that scene could be totally taken out of the movie, and you wouldn't have missed anything. And that was like a 5-minute scene too.
Yeah. No, it was long because like he just was telling them over and over again how incompatible they were, and they're just laughing like, "This guy's stupid."
Yeah.
I guess the movie kind of it gets into its climax, and that's probably one of the biggest parts of the movie because Billy Jack does actually get the crap beat out of him.
He does.
Yeah.
He gets really bloodied up too.
Yeah. Like his eye is like droopy. I mean, it's obviously him just kind of like keeping his eye down. There isn't like a crazy amount of makeup, but yeah, I mean, I think that's cool because like what I like about that character is he's definitely macho. He's a macho character, but he still gets beat up. He still like has his hardships. He's not like 80s ultimate, I can't get hurt, Chuck Norris kind of deal.
Yeah, he definitely has his vulnerable moments, which I think does. I really appreciate when they do like that because when it is like, I mean, when we have something like Invasion USA, it is fun to watch some like silent guy that pretty much knows what he's doing all the time and he gets the upper hand so easily. It is really entertaining, but it's not going to leave like that lasting impression or like a fantastic movie character. And you can kind of see why people really like Billy Jack because like your dad had said, Billy Jack wasn't this like, oh, I'm just going to kick your ass like type of guy. He was kind of like doing it as a last resort type of thing. Like he's like, I don't want any trouble, but if you're bringing me trouble, I'm going to end it type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just fighting for yourself, standing up, and I think that's a pretty good lesson to put in your movie.
So at the finale though, like you said, when they go, he goes to the police station. They're holding the girl hostage again, and he's telling the cops like, we need to go there and help her out, and they're like, we're working on it type of thing. I'm like, what?
Yeah, well, it was like really messed up because these cops are in like a good chunk of the movie, and like the parents are like, oh, can you guarantee us safety? And they're like, well, we can't guarantee anything. Like, what cop says that? Most cops, I think, would be like, yeah, we got you. We'll put a stake out. Like, come on.
Oh, I know. That was the part that was so weird because it's just like
Yeah.
the cops, like they wanted all these women to testify, but they never did anything. They're just like, you got to testify. Like, okay, well, can you protect us? No.
Yeah, then because and this is after they've come and assaulted them multiple times, or like once again after the whole situation came up. Um,
Because there's the scene that I'm thinking of. So like the girl, she, she's at home and then she starts looking at a record called Music to Strip To.
yeah, which
And then,
that actually was a really popular album back in the day. You know that?
oh, was it?
Yeah, yeah. Interesting little thing.
I wonder what songs are on there. But
Yeah.
anyway, but then she does like a little strip tease dance for her stuffed animals.
Yeah, and that stuffed animals, like, what is that supposed to be? It was like duct taped, wasn't it?
There's a lot of really weird looking things if you pay attention to the background. Like there's that stuffed animal, and then there's a scene too where the female lead, she's in like our college dorm or whatever, like at the very beginning of the movie, and there's all these weird posters on the wall. Like there's this one that's like this really creepy looking face like on the wall.
I didn't even notice that, but
yeah, there's some
That's so
really wild stuff in there.
yeah, kind of, I guess it's like that one internet picture where like it's like you can't recognize anything in the photo because it's like a collage of like a mess of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it's for the time. Speaking of like weird messed up things, this motorcycle gang is like disgusting, man. Like the costumes they wear, all of their you definitely hate these characters at a certain point.
They're very gross and they're so outrageous. Like I was trying to think of like, so there's, obviously, they're, assaulting and raping women. So, they're not like the most nice guys, but at the same time, I'm like, they're not, but they also have really like gay undertones to them as well.
Yeah, I think the idea is that they were just down to do anything, kind of like a debauchery kind of idea. I don't
right.
Because oh, go ahead.
Well, yeah, like I was just gonna say the one scene that you and your dad were referencing. It's just like it's a guy. He's like laying on the bar, and he just he says lay one on me, and then the guy just kind of like gives him a little peck on the lips, and he's like no, a big one, and then like they full on French kiss each other.
Yeah, like I said to my dad, like that it wasn't just like the filthiest gay kiss. It's like one of the filthiest kiss ever in a movie because like their tongues are locking, they're all going in, and it lasts. And like for 1967, you sure did not see anything like that.
Yeah, there was a lot of weird scenes like that in this movie. There's a lot of like, so there's like one scene where they're like the bikers are hanging out, and like one guy keeps insisting that they jump in the shower together.
That made me laugh because he kept like coming up to him, putting his arms around their shoulders. He's like, "Hey, what if we took a shower together?"
Right.
So silly. It was like a comedy.
There's another one where Billy Jack is being held captive by the biker gang, and he says, and one guy says, "Come on, you look cute when you smile," and he says it's a Billy Jack.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on there.
And lastly, this is towards the beginning where like the sheriff or whatever is confronting the biker gang at the bar, and the sheriff like goes up to him. First, he calls him, a gay slur.
Yep.
And then he says, "Oh, why don't we just go into? We'll lock each other in a cell and we'll just have it out. And whoever comes back out with the keys or whatever." And at first, because this is at the beginning of the movie, I was like, "Wait, is the cop hitting on the bikers?"
Yeah, I heard that line too, and I was really confused by it. I don't know. Maybe the cop was in on it. You never know.
Those small towns,
Yeah,
not a lot of options, whatever.
Yeah, you take what you can get, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, whatever. Okay. But no, it just, they do other really gross stuff too. Like the head biker goes and picks up his little brother from their abusive father. And then their father like hawks a loogie onto the biker's face, and then the gang biker just like wipes off his face and then eats the spit.
Yes, yeah, and it looks like real spit. I'm gonna
I
say that it was fake, but it looked real.
it wouldn't have surprised me if it was real.
Yeah, that's the thing. This movie lasts on moments way too long. Like it likes to have something happen and it just hangs on it. Like I think about whenever Billy Jack kills the dude towards the end of the movie, the main biker, the head of the biker gang, and he gets shot in the head. From him getting shot and hitting the floor to his like final death takes forever because it's in slow motion. He lands on the couch. You can see him like push himself off the couch and lands right on the floor, all in front of a James Dean poster.
Yeah, he was holding a nice sausage biscuit.
Yeah, it looked really good.
I don't think I think Tom Laughlin just doesn't realize that sometimes less can be more.
Yeah.
So I guess we can kind of get into it, but the future of Billy Jack. So like we said, this spawned the Billy Jack sequel, which is just called Billy Jack. And then there's also Billy Jack, The Trial of Billy Jack, and Billy Jack Goes to Washington. And those movies are almost 3 hours long a piece.
Yeah, each of them. Yeah, not combined. They're long movies. I don't know. That's why I've always, because I've been interested in them, because Billy Jack Goes to Washington and The Trial of Billy Jack sounds interesting, just like a weirdo concept. But like when I see that runtime, I'm like, hell no, I'm not in the mood for that.
I was just trying to imagine, like, can you imagine just like another hour tacked on to this movie? Because this movie was almost 2 hours as it is. And just imagine like another hour tacked on.
Yeah, this movie already felt long enough. It didn't need an hour. I would even argue like Billy Jack feels like a way too long of a movie. It could have been cut down. But I mean, that was just, I guess that was a big draw to it because I mean, people went to see these movies. I think they dwindled as they went on, but I guess people didn't mind.
Well, like, you know, I've heard people talk about Born Losers and Billy Jack, but I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about The Trial of Billy Jack and Billy Jack Goes to Washington.
I've only heard about it like as in like somebody's like, oh, did you know there was a third one? But Billy Jack Goes to Washington, I just learned about for this podcast. I didn't even know that existed. And there's like a hidden lost Billy Jack movie as well that never got finished.
Yeah, so there's the fifth, I guess the fifth one.
Yeah, I guess so.
There was a fifth movie that he had planned for a long time where it was him, Billy Jack in like New York breaking up a child pornography ring.
Yeah. And that does not sound good.
No. And I'm knowing him, it probably would have been like a 3.5 hour long movie or something like that.
Yeah, and it would have been very detailed. Every action would have been accounted for. You know, him walking up to the door, him knocking on the door, somebody not answering, and then he goes next door to find the child pornographer. He's literally knocking on doors to find child pornographers. And that would be it. That would be the movie.
Excuse me. Are you men child pornographers?
Hey, you don't happen to be selling, are you?
Like, why do you want to know, Billy Jack? But then the movie kept kind of evolving just because it had been so long at that point that the movie kept like changing. So like like you said, he was very political, and Tom Laughlin tried to run for president multiple times.
Yeah, I think he ran like 3 times.
Yeah, as recently as 2008, I think was his last time that he tried running.
Yeah, and I mean, he ended up he died in 2013. So who knows if he would have ran again if he were still alive today?
Probably so, but the fifth movie in 2004 was changed to Billy Jack's Crusade to end the war in Iraq and restore America to its moral purpose.
That's awesome. That sounds like the ultimate bad movie. Like,
and I was like that. It's so long. It's just like ridiculously long title. But then it was changed to Billy Jack's Moral Revolution.
Oh God, I don't like that either.
But and then in 2008, it was changed again to Billy Jack for President,
Nice.
and then it was just changed to Billy Jack and Jean, which is his real life wife, who was in the
Mhm.
later movies. But they said it was going to be a new genre of film, and it was going to be a great deal of social commentary on politics, religion, psychology will be discussed, and there will be a debate taking place between Billy Jack and George W. Bush via computer manipulation of archived speeches.
What? Oh my God, this sounds wild. I wish this had happened. I really do. This sounds bizarre. That's such a bold claim to invent a new genre. Like, I couldn't imagine being like, hey, I have a new genre. Like,
This is a movie that no genre has ever existed until today.
yeah, I feel like we're pretty covered on genres. We've been making genres since forever ago, since story making has been a thing. I don't know if it's possible.
So, I mean, it'd be really weird to me to see that because Billy Jack is not a very verbose type of character. He's very soft-spoken. He's kind of like, I'm not going to talk unless I need to say something type of thing. You know, he doesn't have like a whole lot of unnecessary words. So it's just really hard for me to imagine him like, oh, I'm going to have a debate with the president of the United States.
Yeah, at that point, you're losing Billy Jack. You're losing part of what Billy Jack is. Like, Billy Jack being a politician, just, like, once you get to that point, it seems like it ruins the character a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, I haven't seen the other two movies, and maybe he did go through a little transformation because
Yeah.
I mean, spoilers, but I think your dad did say that that Billy Jack got elected to office or something like, as a senator or whatever.
Billy Jack becomes a senator. So, I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, now that we've done the first one, it opens the door to maybe do the sequels one day.
But I mean, I guess though, like Tom Laughlin, I guess this is it for him. Like this was like his film career.
Yeah, which is really sad, right? Like, this is, like, he did those. He was in another movie. He was in one other movie.
He was in a Robert Altman movie, The Delinquents. He was the star of a Robert Altman movie.
Yeah, which is really, we'll have to do that one day, too. That's really interesting. I wonder why Robert Altman picked Tom Laughlin. I mean, Tom Laughlin, his character, Billy Jack and him, they're kind of cool. I don't know. I think they have, like, some kind of star potential there. I don't know. He's an interesting guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, the stuff I read a couple biographies about him leading up to this, and that he was actually really good friends with Marlon Brando, and like, which they kind of like they had. So apparently, he was really very, very difficult to deal with on the set of The Delinquents, and apparently him and Robert Altman like got into it a lot, like did not like each other, and then Tom Laughlin during the 60s, pretty much like all the way up to like 66, like right before this movie, just left the world of acting. And he like opened up a school that him and his wife ran for 5 years.
Yeah. And then that school kind of becomes the subject of one of his movies, if I'm correct.
I think Billy Jack, yeah.
Billy Jack. Yeah, Billy Jack. It's kind of like about a free school. So it's kind of weird, right? Like how like Billy Jack's became more him over time. It kind of like his life flowed into Billy Jack.
That's what it seems like. It seems like he had a very deep personal attachment to the character, and I think it just kind of evolved into Billy Jack being him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. And hey, I mean, he's an interesting dude. I think these movies are really interesting. So
maybe we'll have to set aside 3 hours. We'll just do a Billy Jack week and watch 6 hours of Billy Jack.
No, thank you. We are splitting these up. There's no way. I couldn't imagine doing a double feature of the trial of Billy Jack and Billy Jack Goes to Washington.
Yeah, but can you imagine like actually sitting in a drive-in for 6 hours? Like you're in your car, you get there at like, when the sun goes down at like 8 o'clock or whatever, and you're there until 2 a.m. watching Billy Jack movies.
Yeah, and it's just Billy Jack talking politics the whole time. Like, they would not be running these. I can promise you that.
It definitely would. But hey, you get in there, you get like a little camper or something like that. It might be a little fun.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, it might be a little fun. You could probably get some good sleep in your car as well.
That's what I like to do when I go to a drive-in is get some shut-eye.
Yeah, it's $5, but you get some good sleep out of it.
Well, I think that's all I have. Did you have anything else? Oh, no, I had one thing I wanted to add. There's a big cameo in this movie.
Who?
Jane Russell is in this movie as the mother.
Yeah.
She was in a lot of movies from like the 50s. She was in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes with Marilyn Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
She was also, she's been in a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah. No, she's like a classically like trained actress, and she hands it up in this one. Love it.
Yeah, well, like her daughter gets assaulted, and then she's just screaming like how could you let this? It's just so she's all in on this movie.
Yeah. She like slams the door, cries. She does it all. But yeah, I think that's about it, right?
I think so.
Yeah. All right. So that ends it for this Tuesday edition. But Ryan, what's going to be coming up on Thursday?
Well, we're going to be digging back into the Toho book, and but we're not doing a Godzilla movie this time. We're going to do another kaiju, one that is probably the second most popular kaiju character made by Toho, and we're doing Mothra from 1961, directed by Shirio Honda. Unfortunately, this is not streaming anywhere. We both had to buy a Blu-ray of this movie, so if you do want to see it, it might be a little harder to find however you want to find it, but it'll be a good time. I'll make sure we'll cover it as much as we can, but yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah, I'm super excited, and if you want to talk a little bit about Mothra, be sure to email us at driveindoublefeaturepodcast@gmail.com. You can also tweet at us at DIDFpod over on Twitter. Also check that out for any updates. But until next time.